Good evening. Hope everyone's doing well. Welcome to All the Things Under Heaven and Earth. I'm Spider's Webbing. So, right here, as of today, I picked up my copy of Old School Essentials. Um, there's nothing particularly special about that. Old School Essentials has been around for a while. It has an incredible appeal, obviously, to many people. There's a lot of my friends uh, who greatly adore this game and everything about it and its legacy. And I mean, it's just pick something and they'll say yes. And honestly, for a long time, I really bounced really hard off this game. Um, we'll we'll get into that for a little bit, and then we'll go into why I changed my mind. So I've run BX before. I've run basic, as in I went and printed out the Holmes, sorry, the Moldvay PDF, and I put it in a nice binder, and then I sat down and I ran it for my friends, and I ran it with a pre-published adventure. I can't remember which one I did. It's been too long. I forget which particular one I ran it on, but um, I thought it was okay. I thought it worked just fine. Um, at the time, I didn't quite understand what was so special about it. Now, one of the things that I've now since that point in time, I played a lot more games, like a lot more, and have banged my head on a number of things and have started designing my own games. Matter of fact, got a I've got a game of my own sitting around called Apex. I'll put a link up to that in my YouTube channel for my itch if you want to go check that out. I'm also working on my big baby Crescendo, which has been in development for 2+ years, and just keeps going, and it's almost done. It's almost done. Oh my God, it's almost done. Wow. Anyway, and I developed a bit of a in designing Crescendo. I developed a bit of a sense for what I wanted out of a game. Um, I realized while I was playing um, a number of other games that there was just something missing in them. This includes things like Burning Wheel. This includes other OSR games, which isn't to throw shade. It's just the thing that I found. I just felt like something was missing. And I found that as I looked at as I looked at all these games, the thing that was missing, the thing that I wanted, was a structure. And what I mean by that is that when you sit down to play, um, when people sit down to play, they need some form of a meta structure in order for them to understand what is allowed and what is not inside of the shared make believe world. I like to call that an environment. I don't know if anyone else has a funny name for it or whatever, but I call it an environment because it's like, oh well, if I jump, if I jump, gravity will catch me and push me back down to the ground. That's kind of the things I'm talking about, except it's game rules. Um, And so, one of the things that I went and did very extensively for Crescendo was I developed an environment. I developed a series of consequences, a series of a series of procedures that make the game very easy to run, like very easy. Crescendo is actually an incredibly easy game to run, especially in comparison to a lot of other games that are quote unquote story games. That's not that's not really for this particular video, but it's just something to keep in mind when I say what I'm about to say. I've developed more or less from scratch a a meta structure, um, for my games. And whenever I design something, there's always some form of a meta structure in there, because I found that it makes GMing it a lot easier. It's so much nicer to be able to lean back on a series of procedures that allow you to run a game in a way that you can rely upon to produce unpredictable results. And that then allows the players to trust in what you're doing. Because if you, the GM, are clearly surprised by the results of what you're doing, they then realize that really anything goes. It's one thing to tell everybody, okay, you can do whatever you want. But if you're harried and stressed, and if you're trying to figure out what the next thing to do, they pick up on that. And then it's a lot harder for them to take that seriously. I'm not saying that's true of everybody. This has just been my experience, both GMing and playing. If the GM isn't supported by the game mechanics, it's not difficult to suss out. So that this is something that over the last 2 years, as I've developed my own game, I've come to really, really appreciate. To I've really changed a lot of my tastes, and a lot of what I was looking for inside of a role playing game changed dramatically because of my time designing Crescendo. And so when this bad boy came in, right there, I started going through it. And if you want to take a look, actually, I won't make you take a look because it'll probably make somebody motion sick. It'll make me motion sick looking at it. I'm only really at page 40, which is equipment. Gorgeous little book, by the way. The layout's something I'm going to have to keep in mind for when I start laying out Crescendo. But the thing that I realized as I was reading the game was that the meta structure that I've grown to appreciate so much in Crescendo from my own designs, it's been in here the whole time. For people who play OSR, you're laughing. You should be. It's a funny thing for someone to say, because, well, no, really. I mean, Basic did it all the way back. And I think that that's a very fair reason to like this game. It's not a game about the classes. To be honest, class-based play usually doesn't interest me too much. Mostly because it doesn't feel like it gels together. This is different. Because they cleaned everything up, and because they what's the name of the guy who did this? I mean, obviously it's Necrotic Gnome. We'll just say Necrotic Gnome for the moment. But because Necrotic Gnome took so much time to clean things up, it got a lot easier for me to realize what the game itself was driving at. And what the game is there's all of these rules in here for just going out and adventuring. And because there's all these rules for just going out and adventuring, the classes themselves actually should not be all that heavy. I know a lot of people who have complained because things like the OSR don't usually have very, very heavy, class requirements on them. But looking at this, it's very easy to see why they don't. They don't because the game is not in the classes. The game is in the procedures that the GM throws at you, which you then respond to. Again, I don't know if that's the hottest take available, but I don't know. I mean, for criminy sake, these classes fit on a double page spread for the most part. I mean, obviously, obviously spells don't fit on a double page spread, but most of the classes, they fit very comfortably on a double page spread with the illustration included, which is really, really cool. But the only reason why it's cool is because the actual game mechanics allow you, they are already so well thought out that the classes just help you to interface with those mechanics just a little bit differently. It's all the same engine. It's all the same beautiful design, which allows you to interact with the world in such a way that produces constant surprises and um, constant new stuff, which the GM has ample tools for. There's a lot of stuff in this book and in the other stuff that Necrotic Gnome has released, and really that the OSR has released, that allows the GM to sit back and not have to worry about things. And like I said earlier, that lack of worry does carry over to players. If your players have a soul, they're going to notice if you're getting stressed out. I don't say that from personal experience or anything. And because they can see that you're stressed out, they won't try things as much because it means trouble for you. Well, if your game already has a structure that they can recognize that you're using and you're relying upon and that you expect them to use, that creates an interface which allows everybody to work together. Um, and that is an amazing that's an amazing thing. And so my first real video on the channel is me eating crow about it. Um, you'll be seeing a lot of videos like this on here, by the way. I have no I have no real issue with saying that I got something wrong. And I did. I'm glad I figured out that I got something wrong, because this has got this is a really holistic this thing is really holistic, and I really like holistic games. I've come to appreciate them more and more and more. And that's where we're going to leave this particular video. If you like what you see, like, subscribe, hit the bell icon, all that other all that other happy crap that, you know, obviously I'm sitting here with my phone's webcam to a single light. I'm obviously here for something very different than gathering a whole bunch of attention. So, um, have a wonderful evening.